On a family camping trip. My mom sneered, "We don't have enough tents for your wife and kids," while they gave my brother's in-laws my tent, even though I paid for all tents and gears. 2 days later, karma hit and now they're begging. Hey Reddit, I need to get this off my chest because what happened on our family camping trip 2 weeks ago still has me shaking my head. I 34, male, married to Sarah, 32 female, and we have 2 kids, Emma, 8 female, and Jake, 6 male. This story is about how my family showed their true colors during what was supposed to be a fun weekend getaway, and how karma came for them faster than I could have ever imagined. To understand how messed up this situation got, I need to give you some background on my family dynamics. I'm the middle child of 3 boys. My older brother Kevin, 37 male, is married to Jessica, 35 female, and they have one daughter Madison, 10 female. My younger brother Ryan, 29 male, just got married last year to this woman Tiffany, 26 female, who my mom absolutely adores for reasons I still can't figure out. Maybe it's because Tiffany comes from money, or maybe it's because she constantly compliments my mom on everything from her cooking to her decorating choices. Whatever it is, Tiffany can do no wrong in my mom's eyes. Meanwhile, my wife Sarah has always been treated like an outsider. Sarah's a nurse, works crazy hours, and she's one of the most genuine, hardworking people I've ever met. But she's not flashy, doesn't kiss up to people, and definitely doesn't stroke my mom's ego the way Tiffany does. Sarah just focuses on taking care of our kids and being a good person. Apparently, that's not enough for my family. The favoritism has been going on for years, but it really ramped up after Ryan married Tiffany. Suddenly, every family gathering became about what Tiffany wanted, what would make Tiffany comfortable, what Tiffany thought about everything. At Easter dinner, my mom rearranged the entire seating chart because Tiffany mentioned she had a better view of the garden from a different chair. At my dad's birthday party, they changed the restaurant reservation because Tiffany said the original place was too ethnic for her taste. Sarah started noticing it too, but she's too classy to say anything. She'd just squeeze my hand under the table when Mom would gush over Tiffany's latest designer purse while completely ignoring the thoughtful gift Sarah had brought. Or when Dad would spend 20 minutes asking Tiffany about her yoga instructor certification while barely acknowledging that Sarah had just finished a grueling month in the ICU saving people's lives. Kevin's wife, Jessica, has always been treated well by the family, probably because she's been around longer, and she and Kevin don't have kids that require much attention. Jessica's pretty low-key, keeps to herself mostly, and doesn't seem to notice or care about the dynamics as much as Sarah does. The camping idea came up back in March during Sunday dinner at my parents' house. Dad mentioned how he missed the camping trips we used to take when we were kids, back when we'd pile into that old RV and head up to Lake Arrowhead every summer. Mom got all nostalgic and started going on about how those were the best family memories, how we should do it again now that we're all grown up with families of our own. Ryan and Tiffany immediately jumped on the idea. Tiffany started going on about how she'd always wanted to try glamping, and how it would be so fun to disconnect from technology and get back to nature. She said this while scrolling through Instagram, by the way. Kevin and Jessica seemed interested too, said it would be good for Madison to experience camping. I was honestly excited about it. Sarah and I love the outdoors, we take the kids hiking pretty regularly, and we have most of our own camping gear already. Emma and Jake were thrilled when we told them about it. They started making lists of things they wanted to do, talking about roasting marshmallows and seeing stars. That's when I made my first mistake. I offered to handle the logistics. See, I work in supply chain management for a mid-sized company, so organizing and coordinating this kind of stuff is literally what I do for a living. Plus, I genuinely wanted this trip to go well. I thought maybe if I took the lead on planning, made sure everything was perfect, my family might finally appreciate what Sarah and I bring to the table. So I researched campgrounds, found this beautiful spot about 2 hours north of the city with hiking trails, a lake for fishing and swimming, clean facilities, and sites big enough for multiple families. I made reservations for 3 adjacent campsites for the weekend. I created a detailed itinerary with activity options, meal planning, and even backup indoor activities in case of bad weather. But here's where it gets expensive. When I asked everyone what camping gear they had, the responses were pretty much what I expected. Kevin and Jessica had some basic stuff, but nothing for their whole family. Ryan and Tiffany had literally nothing except some designer athleisure wear that Tiffany thought would be appropriate for camping. My parents had their old gear, but most of it was from the 1980s and falling apart. I sat down with Sarah and we talked about it. We could either let everyone scramble to buy or rent their own gear, which would probably result in a lot of stress and potentially people backing out, or we could invest in good equipment that would get used for this trip and hopefully many future family camping adventures. Sarah, being the generous person she is, said we should just handle it. Think of it as an investment in family memories, she said. Besides, we can use all this stuff for our own trips with the kids too. So I went all out. I'm talking top-of-the-line family camping gear. I bought 3 large family tents, each one capable of sleeping 6 people comfortably. These weren't cheap tents either. We're talking $400 each for weather-resistant, easy setup tents with color-coded poles and instruction videos. I got sleeping bags rated for the mountain temperatures, camping chairs for everyone, a camp kitchen setup with a 3-burner stove, coolers, lanterns, a portable fire pit, first aid supplies, bug spray, sunscreen, and even camping games for the kids. The total came out to just over $3,200. Sarah and I agreed it was a lot, but we figured we'd get years of use out of everything, and it would make this first trip really special. Plus, I was hoping that if I demonstrated how much I cared about family time by investing in quality gear, it might shift the family dynamics in a positive direction. I sent everyone a detailed packing list, labeled all the gear so people would know what belonged to whom, and even color-coded the tents. Blue tent for me, Sarah, Emma, and Jake. Red tent for Kevin, Jessica, and Madison. Green tent for Ryan, Tiffany, and whoever else might need space. The plan was that each family would be responsible for their own food, but I also bought a bunch of group supplies like marshmallows, hot dogs, and breakfast items that everyone could share. I made laminated copies of the campground map, emergency contact information, and activity schedules. 2 weeks before the trip, Tiffany announced that her parents were going to join us. Just like that. No discussion, no asking if it was okay. Just, oh, by the way, my mom and dad are so excited to meet everyone. They'll drive up Saturday morning. I was a little annoyed, but figured we could make it work. The campsites were big enough, and I had that third tent that could fit extra people if needed. What I didn't anticipate was how this would completely change the family dynamic for the worse. The week before the trip, my mom started calling me with suggestions. Tiffany's parents were apparently used to more upscale accommodations. Maybe we should book a cabin instead, or at least make sure they had the most comfortable setup. Mom had talked to Tiffany about the sleeping arrangements, and they thought it would be best if Tiffany's parents got the newest, biggest tent with the best location. I explained that I had already planned everything out, that all the tents were the same model, and that the sites were all equally good. But Mom kept pushing. You know how important first impressions are, she said. Tiffany's parents are wonderful people, and we want them to feel welcome. The night before we left, I was loading all the gear into our minivan and my dad's truck, when Ryan showed up with Tiffany and her parents. Tiffany's mom, Linda, was this perfectly coiffed woman in white capri pants and a pink polo shirt, who looked like she'd never seen dirt before. Her dad, Bob, was wearing what appeared to be a brand new REI outfit with the tag still attached. Tiffany immediately started pointing out all the gear to her parents. See, I told you Tom would take care of everything. He's so organized. She was acting like she had personally arranged for all of this stuff instead of just showing up expecting everything to be provided. That's when Linda made her first comment. Oh my, there's certainly a lot of equipment here. I hope we'll have enough space in the tent. Bob and I are used to a king-size bed, and we both need room to spread out. I assured her that the tents were spacious, and that I'd brought extra thick sleeping pads for comfort. But I could see the wheels turning in everyone's heads. This wasn't going to be the simple family camping trip I'd envisioned. Friday morning, we convoyed up to the campground. Sarah and I had the kids singing camp songs in the back seat while we followed my dad's truck, which was loaded with all the heavy gear. Kevin and Jessica were behind us, and Ryan brought up the rear with Tiffany and her parents. The campground was absolutely beautiful. Tall pine trees, a crystal clear lake in the distance, and our 3 sites were perfectly positioned with easy access to the bathrooms and the trail to the lake. I started to feel optimistic again. Maybe once we got everything set up and started relaxing, the family dynamics would smooth out. I was wrong. The first sign of trouble came when we started unloading. I had everything clearly labeled and organized, but my mom immediately started redistributing things. Let's make sure Linda and Bob get the blue tent, she announced. It's the nicest color, and it was at the top of the pile, so it must be the best one. Actually, Mom, I said, that's our tent. All the tents are identical, just different colors for organization. Blue for us, red for Kevin and Jessica, green for Ryan, Tiffany, and her parents. Mom looked at me like I had suggested something completely unreasonable. Don't be selfish, Tom. Linda and Bob are guests. We need to make sure they're comfortable. They'll be perfectly comfortable in the green tent, I said, trying to keep my voice level. It's the exact same tent, just a different color. That's when Tiffany chimed in. Actually, Linda has this thing about colors. Blue is her favorite, and green makes her feel anxious. It's like a psychological thing. I looked at Sarah, who was helping Emma and Jake pick out a good spot for their camp chairs. She caught my eye and gave me a look that said, "Just let it go. It's not worth fighting over." So I let them have the blue tent. No big deal, right? They're all the same tent. But that was just the beginning. As we started setting up, it became clear that nobody except Sarah and I actually knew how to put up a tent. Kevin and Jessica were standing around looking confused, while Madison ran around in circles. Ryan was trying to help his in-laws, but clearly had no idea what he was doing. And Tiffany was sitting in a camp chair directing everyone while filing her nails. I ended up setting up all 3 tents myself while Sarah organized the camp kitchen and kept an eye on all the kids. By the time I finished, I was sweating through my shirt and my back was killing me, but the campsite looked amazing. 3 perfectly pitched tents, organized gear areas, camp chairs arranged around the fire pit, and a kitchen setup that would make any camping magazine jealous. That's when my mom delivered the line that still makes my blood boil. I was helping Emma and Jake arrange their sleeping bags in what I thought was our tent when Mom appeared in the doorway. "Oh, Tom, there's been a change of plans," she said, in that fake sweet voice she uses when she's about to say something awful. "We don't have enough tents for your wife and kids." I stopped what I was doing and stared at her. "What do you mean we don't have enough tents?" "I bought 3 tents. There are 3 families plus Tiffany's parents. The math works out fine." Mom glanced back toward the blue tent where Linda and Bob were arranging their belongings. "Well, Linda and Bob need their privacy, and they take up quite a bit of space. And Kevin's family needs the red tent for the 3 of them. So Ryan and Tiffany will take the green tent." "Okay," I said slowly. "So where exactly are Sarah, Emma, Jake, and I supposed to sleep?" Mom shrugged like this was a minor detail. "I'm sure you can figure something out. Maybe the kids can sleep with their cousins? And you and Sarah are outdoorsy people. You probably have a backup tent in your car or something." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, I don't have another tent. I bought these 3 tents specifically for this trip. I planned the whole thing based on 3 families plus 2 extra people. That's exactly what these tents accommodate." "Don't be dramatic, Tom," she said, and I could see Tiffany and Linda watching from the blue tent entrance. "I'm sure the kids won't mind sleeping on the couch in someone else's tent for one night." That's when it hit me. This wasn't an oversight or a miscommunication. This was deliberate. They had planned this. They wanted to push my family out to make room for Tiffany's parents, and they were doing it with a smile on their faces, like I should be grateful for the opportunity to problem solve our way out of homelessness. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice getting louder despite my efforts to stay calm. "I paid for all 3 of these tents. I paid for all the camping gear. I planned this entire trip. I set up everyone's tents. And now you're telling me that my wife and children don't have a place to sleep because you want to give our tent to people who decided to join at the last minute?" Mom's fake smile faltered for just a second. "It's not about the money, Tom. It's about being welcoming to family." "Family?" I repeated. "What about my family? What about Sarah and Emma and Jake? Are we not family?" By now, everyone at the campsite was staring. Kevin and Jessica had stopped unpacking. Ryan looked uncomfortable but didn't say anything. Tiffany was whispering something to her mother, probably explaining what a terrible person I was for not wanting to give up the tent I had purchased. Sarah appeared at my elbow. "Tom," she said quietly, "let's just figure something out. We can drive back into town and see if there's a hotel with availability." The fact that my wife was willing to leave our planned family camping trip to stay in a hotel because my mother had essentially made us homeless on our own camping trip was the last straw. "No," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "We're not driving back to town. We're not staying in a hotel. And we're certainly not splitting up our family so that Tiffany's parents can have the tent that I bought for my children." I walked over to the blue tent where Linda and Bob were arranging their belongings and said politely, "I'm sorry for any confusion, but this tent is actually for my family. There's been a misunderstanding." Linda looked at me like I had asked her to sleep in the dirt, but Tiffany said this was our tent. "We've already put all our things in here." "I understand, and I apologize for the confusion, but I need you to move your things to the green tent. That's where the space was planned for you." That's when Bob stood up to his full height, which was maybe 5'7" in hiking boots, and said, "Now listen here, son. I don't know what kind of operation you're running here, but we were told we'd have the best accommodations. We're not moving." Quick pause, fellas. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. Thanks so much for your support. All right, back to the drama. I looked around the campsite at my family. My mom was glaring at me like I was ruining Christmas. Dad was suddenly very interested in organizing the coolers and avoiding eye contact. Kevin and Jessica were whispering to each other. Ryan was staring at his phone like it contained the secrets of the universe. And Sarah was standing with Emma and Jake, both of whom looked confused and upset. Emma asked, "Daddy, where are we going to sleep tonight?" That's when I made the decision that changed everything. "Pack up," I told Sarah. "We're leaving." "Tom, don't be ridiculous," my mom said. "You're overreacting." I walked over to the blue tent and started pulling out Linda and Bob's belongings. Not roughly, but firmly. "This is my tent," I said. "I bought it, I set it up, and my family is going to use it. If you want to stay for the camping trip, you're welcome to use the green tent. If that's not acceptable, you're welcome to leave." Linda started sputtering about disrespect and how she'd never been treated so rudely. Bob was getting red in the face and muttering about young people these days. But I wasn't done. I continued pulling out their stuff, and then I started dismantling the tent itself. "What are you doing?" Ryan finally spoke up. "I'm taking my tent," I said as I worked, "and my sleeping bags, and my camp chairs, and my camping stove, and my coolers, and everything else I paid for." The reality of the situation was starting to dawn on them. Without my gear, they didn't have enough equipment for anyone to camp comfortably. "You can't just take everything," Tiffany said, her voice getting shrill. "What are we supposed to use?" "I don't know," I said, moving on to pack up the camp kitchen. "Maybe you should have thought of that before you decided my family wasn't important enough to have a place to sleep." My mom tried one more guilt trip. "Tom, think about what you're doing. You're ruining this trip for everyone." I stopped packing and looked directly at her. "I'm not ruining anything, Mom. You ruined it the minute you decided that Tiffany's parents were more important than your own son's family. You ruined it when you decided to take away the tent that my children were supposed to sleep in. You ruined it when you expected us to just smile and accept being treated like second-class family members." "That's not what happened," she said, but even she didn't sound convinced. "That's exactly what happened," I replied. "And now you get to deal with the consequences." Sarah and the kids helped me load everything back into our vehicles. It took about 45 minutes to pack up all the gear I had brought. The tents, the sleeping bags, the camp stove, the coolers, the chairs, the lanterns, the fire pit, the first aid supplies, all of it. When we were done, the campsite looked like a sad, empty patch of dirt with 5 adults, 1 teenager, and 2 very confused elderly people standing around looking lost. "Where are we supposed to sleep?" Madison asked Kevin. Kevin looked around helplessly. "I don't know, honey. Maybe in the car?" That's when Emma, my 8-year-old daughter, walked up to my mother and said, "Grandma, why were you mean to Mommy and Daddy? Now everyone is sad." My mom's face crumpled a little, but she still couldn't admit she'd done anything wrong. "Grandma wasn't mean, sweetie. Daddy is just being difficult." I knelt down next to Emma and Jake. "Sometimes adults make bad choices," I told them. "When that happens, we have to make our own good choices. We're going to go have our own camping adventure." As we drove away, I could see them in my rearview mirror, still standing around the empty campsite. Part of me felt bad for Madison, and even for Kevin and Jessica, who hadn't really been part of the scheming, but were now stuck dealing with the consequences. But mostly I felt free. Sarah suggested we drive to a different campground, about an hour away that she'd heard good things about. We called ahead and they had a site available. It was smaller than the original place, more rustic, but it was perfect for our little family. We spent the next 2 days having the best camping trip we'd ever had. The kids caught fish in the stream, we hiked to a waterfall, played card games in the tent when it rained, and roasted marshmallows around our own campfire. Without the family drama and the pressure to make everyone else happy, we could just enjoy being together. Emma learned to identify different types of birds. Jake collected rocks and arranged them in patterns around our campsite. Sarah and I actually got to have adult conversations without constantly managing other people's needs and emotions. On Sunday evening, as we were packing up to head home, my phone started buzzing. Text after text, call after call. I ignored them until we were back in the car, and then I finally looked. The messages were from everyone. Mom, Dad, Kevin, Ryan, even Tiffany. But the most illuminating ones were from Jessica. The first text, "Tom, you need to call your mom. She's having a meltdown." The second, "Linda and Bob left Saturday morning. They were furious." The third, "Ryan and Tiffany are fighting. She's blaming him for not standing up to you." The fourth, "Kevin and I ended up sleeping in the car with Madison. She kept asking why Uncle Tom was angry with her." Then came the phone calls. My mom crying, saying I had humiliated the family. My dad, trying to play peacemaker, suggesting we all just forget about it and move on. Ryan, angry that I had destroyed his relationship with his in-laws. But the call that really got to me was from Madison. Kevin had let her call me, and she was crying. Uncle Tom, why didn't you want to camp with us? Did I do something wrong? I sat in that car and explained to my 10-year-old niece that sometimes adults have disagreements, but it wasn't her fault, and I wasn't mad at her. I told her I loved her and that maybe she could come camping with just our family sometime soon. After I hung up, Sarah reached over and squeezed my hand. You did the right thing, she said. I know, I replied, but it still sucks. The fallout continued for days. My mom sent me long text messages about how disappointed she was in me, how I had embarrassed the family, how Tiffany's parents thought we were all trashy people, now because of my behavior. Ryan called to tell me that Tiffany was so upset about the camping trip that she was questioning whether she wanted to be part of our family at all. Like that was supposed to make me feel bad instead of relieved. Dad kept trying to get me to apologize, to be the bigger person, and smooth things over. But I was done being the bigger person. I had been the bigger person for years, watching my wife get treated poorly, watching my kids get less attention and love from their grandparents because they weren't the right grandkids. Kevin was the only one who surprised me. He called on Wednesday evening after the kids were in bed. I owe you an apology, he said without preamble. For what? For not standing up for you and Sarah. For letting Mom push you around like that. For not speaking up when I saw what was happening. I was quiet for a moment. Why didn't you? Kevin sighed. Honestly? Because it was easier to let Mom take her frustrations out on you than to deal with them myself. Because Jessica and I were comfortable with the status quo. Because I'm a coward. It was the most honest conversation Kevin and I had had in years. Madison has been asking about you guys constantly, he continued. She doesn't understand why the camping trip ended like that, and I've been trying to explain it without making anyone look bad. But the truth is, Mom was wrong. You paid for everything. You planned everything. And then she tried to make your family homeless on your own trip. That's messed up. So what are you going to do about it? I asked. I'm going to start speaking up, Kevin said. And I want to plan a camping trip with just our families. You, me, Sarah, Jessica, and all the kids. No drama, no politics, just cousins having fun. 2 weeks later, that's exactly what we did. Kevin and Jessica bought their own camping gear. We found a beautiful spot in the mountains, and we had an amazing time. Madison, Emma, and Jake played together like best friends, which they were before family politics got in the way. Sarah and Jessica bonded over shared stories of feeling like outsiders in family gatherings. Kevin and I worked on rebuilding our relationship without the toxic dynamics that had been poisoning it for years. But the real karma came about a month after the camping trip disaster. I got a call from my dad on a Thursday evening. He sounded stressed, which was unusual for him. Tom, we need to talk. What's up, Dad? It's about Ryan and Tiffany. Apparently, the camping trip had been the final straw for Tiffany's parents. They had been having doubts about Ryan for months, thinking he wasn't good enough for their daughter, wasn't ambitious enough, didn't come from the right kind of family. The camping disaster confirmed all their suspicions. Linda had spent the entire awkward weekend complaining to Tiffany about how uncivilized our family was, how dysfunctional our dynamics were, and how embarrassing it had been to be treated so poorly by people who were clearly beneath them socially. Tiffany, who had been so eager to win my mom's approval, started seeing our family through her parents' critical eyes. She began questioning whether she wanted to be associated with people who would create such drama over camping arrangements. The real kicker, Linda and Bob had been planning to help Ryan and Tiffany buy a house. They had promised a substantial down payment as a wedding gift, contingent on Ryan proving he could elevate himself and distance himself from problematic family influences. After the camping trip, they decided Ryan was too enmeshed with his dysfunctional family to be a good investment. They withdrew the offer for the house down payment and started pressuring Tiffany to consider whether she had married into the right family. Ryan called me a week later, furious. This is all your fault, he said. Tiffany's parents hate our family now because of your tantrum at the campground. They were going to give us $60,000 for a house, and now they won't even return our calls. Let me get this straight, I said. You're mad at me because your in-laws are shallow people who judge others based on camping arrangements. I'm mad at you because you couldn't just go along to get along for one weekend. You had to make a big scene and embarrass everyone. I embarrassed everyone? Ryan, Mom tried to make my children sleep outside because your wife's parents wanted special treatment. How exactly was I supposed to go along with that? You could have found another solution. You could have been flexible. Like what? Like making Sarah and the kids sleep in our car while strangers use the tent I bought? Like teaching my children that they're less important than people with money? Like showing Sarah that her husband won't stand up for his own family? Ryan didn't have an answer for that, but the karma wasn't finished yet. 2 weeks after that conversation, Tiffany filed for divorce. She had apparently been talking to her parents about annulment options since the camping trip, but they finally convinced her that Ryan was never going to be successful enough or socially polished enough to meet their standards. Linda had been showing her pictures of other men they thought would be more suitable matches. The divorce papers cited irreconcilable differences, but Ryan found text messages between Tiffany and her mother discussing how the camping trip had been a wake-up call about the kind of family she had married into. My mom was devastated. She had invested so much emotional energy into winning Tiffany's approval, constantly defending Tiffany's behavior, and reshaping family dynamics around making Tiffany comfortable. Now Tiffany was gone, taking all that validation with her. Ryan moved back in with my parents temporarily, which created its own set of problems. He was depressed, angry, and looking for someone to blame. Mom kept insisting it was all my fault, that if I had just been more accommodating during the camping trip, none of this would have happened. Dad, to his credit, was starting to see things more clearly. He called me about a month after Tiffany left Ryan. "I've been thinking about that camping trip," he said, "about what your mother asked you to do. And it wasn't right. You paid for everything. You planned everything. You did all the work, and then we tried to push your family aside for people who weren't even originally part of the trip." I should have said something. "Why didn't you?" Dad was quiet for a long time. "Because your mother gets so excited about having everyone think well of us. She was so proud that Tiffany's parents wanted to meet the family, so eager to make a good impression. I thought if we could just get through one weekend, everyone would be happy. Everyone except my family." "Yeah," he said quietly. "Everyone except your family." The conversation with Dad led to bigger changes. He started pushing back against Mom's favoritism, insisting that all the grandchildren be treated equally. When Mom tried to plan Emma's birthday party around what would be convenient for Ryan's new girlfriend, Dad shut it down. "Emma gets to have her party the way she wants it," he told Mom. "She's been looking forward to this for months, and we're not changing everything because Ryan might bring someone new." Kevin continued to stand up for Sarah and me in family situations. When Mom made one of her subtle digs about Sarah's work schedule, Kevin called her out on it directly. "Aunt Sarah saves people's lives for a living, Grandma. Maybe we should be grateful she makes time for family at all." The family dynamics shifted slowly, but they did shift. Mom realized that her favoritism was costing her relationships with her other children and grandchildren. Without Tiffany there to provide constant validation, she had to confront the fact that she had been treating people poorly in pursuit of approval from someone who never really cared about our family anyway. Ryan eventually got his act together, started therapy, and admitted that the marriage had been problematic from the beginning. He said Tiffany had always been critical of our family, always pushing him to distance himself from us, and that he had gone along with it because he was infatuated with her. "I let her convince me that you guys were the problem," he told me during one of our first real conversations in years. "She was always saying that Mom babied me too much, that Dad was too blue-collar, that Kevin was boring, and that you were controlling. I started seeing everything through her eyes instead of my own." "What changed?" I asked. "When she left, I realized that the only people who actually cared about me were the family members I had been pushing away. Her parents didn't give a damn about me as a person. They just wanted a son-in-law who looked good on Christmas cards." The real validation came 6 months later, during Emma's birthday party. We were having it at our house, a simple backyard barbecue with games and cake. Nothing fancy, just family and a few of Emma's school friends. Mom was helping Sarah set up the decorations when she stopped and said, "You know, this is exactly the kind of party I should have been throwing all along." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. "All those elaborate events I planned to impress Tiffany, all that stress about having everything perfect. This is what family gatherings should be like. People who actually care about each other, kids playing, everyone relaxed and happy." Sarah could have been petty about it, could have pointed out that she'd been trying to create this kind of atmosphere for years while being ignored and dismissed. Instead, she just smiled and said, "I'm glad you're enjoying it." That night, after everyone had gone home and the kids were in bed, Sarah and I sat on our back porch, looking at the stars. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "The camping trip, the confrontation, all the drama that followed?" I thought about it for a minute. "No," I said. "I regret that it took so long for me to stand up for us. I regret that Emma and Jake had to see their grandparents treat us that way. But I don't regret finally setting boundaries. Even though it caused so much upheaval, the upheaval was already there," I said. "It was just hidden under politeness and people-pleasing. At least now it's out in the open where we can deal with it." A year later, our family relationships are the healthiest they've ever been. We still do group camping trips, but now everyone brings their own gear and contributes fairly. Kevin and Jessica have become real friends to Sarah and me. Dad stands up to Mom when she starts falling into old patterns of favoritism. Ryan is dating someone new, a teacher named Amy, who actually likes our family and fits in naturally without needing special treatment or accommodation. Mom treats her the same way she treats Jessica and Sarah, which is to say, like a normal family member instead of a precious princess. And my kids? Emma and Jake learned an important lesson about standing up for yourself and your family, about not accepting poor treatment just to keep the peace, and about the difference between people who actually care about you and people who only care about what you can do for them.